Hello friends, welcome to our channel. Myself Professor Ravikiran Latte. In today's lecture, we will be discussing a theoretical Bohr's model which was proposed by the Niels Bohr, and based on that one, how the energy level diagram of hydrogen atom will be prepared, that we will be discussing in our today's session. So let us start with the today's topic. Before actually starting with the today's topic, let me first of all recap whatever the things which I have discussed in our previous lecture. We had seen the various atomic models prior to the Niels Bohr. That was nothing but the solid sphere model which was proposed by the John Dalton in the year 1803. After that, in the year 1904, it was J.J. Thomson who proposed his plum pudding model, which was further refined by a scientist Rutherford in the year 1911, and Rutherford's model was further refined by the Niels Bohr, which we will be going to discuss in a today's session. And the rest of the course we will be considering the modifications of the Niels Bohr model which were given by the Erwin Schrödinger in his quantum model of an atom. So let us start with the Bohr's model. When Bohr proposed his model, prior to that one it was the Rutherford's model which was there. When he was proposing the model, he assumed that the planets, how the way in which the planets are moving around the sun in our solar system, in the same fashion he assumed that the electron also revolves around the nucleus in a circular orbit. In circular steady orbit, electrons are revolving around the nucleus, and he proposed a concept of uh, steady orbit and with constant energy, means energy of the electron, it will be constant when they will be moving inside a circular orbit around the nucleus. So what he considered while proposing his model, that we will be considering. So what he considered is, he considered atom consisting of a nucleus with charge plus Ze, where plus Z was the number of electrons which are there inside the atom, and he considered that a nuclear having a certain mass capital M, and charge on the electron is minus E, and the mass of the electron M is there, and he consider the first element of the periodic table, that is nothing but the hydrogen, for which atomic number Z is equal to 1, and for hydrogen atom, one proton is there and one electron, it is revolving around the nucleus. A hydrogen atom does not have a neutron in it. Okay, this model can be applied to the singly ionized helium atom as well. Just the thing is that in that case, in this model we have to consider Z is equal to 2. We will be seeing this in the coming slides. Also, this can be applied to the doubly ionized lithium ion, for which Z is equal to 3. Okay, so though we are explaining the properties of an hydrogen atom based on the Bohr's model, but this model can be applied to a singly ionized helium, for which Z is equal to 2, and doubly ionized lithium ion for the doubly ionized lithium atom, for which Z is equal to 3. So what was the postulates of the Bohr model? It was the three major postulates which he proposed. So we will be looking into those three postulates. The first postulate he proposed is that electron in an atom, when electrons are there inside an atom, they move in a circular orbit. The electrons move in circular orbit around the nucleus, and we know that for a circular motion of an object, a necessary centripetal force is required. So he proposed that the necessary centripetal force required for this circular motion, it will be provided by the Coulombic attraction, okay, obeying the laws of classical mechanics. Okay, and this Coulombic force of attraction, it is in between the electron and the nucleus, means basically in nucleus protons are there which are positively charged and electrons are negatively charged. So Coulombic attraction force is there between the nucleus and the electron, which he proposed. So based on this one, he proposed that for a steady circular orbit, centripetal force has to be equal to electrostatic force. Centripetal force has to be equal to electrostatic force. And we know that if an electron is there, if some object is there whose mass is m, if it is moving with a velocity v in a circular orbit of radius r, then the centripetal force required for the circular motion, it is given by mv square upon r. And the electrostatic force between the plus E and minus E charge between these two in magnitude, it will be given by 1 upon 4 pi epsilon 0 ze square upon r square, where r is the separation between the electron and the nucleus, which is nothing but the Bohr's radius. Now that was the first equation. Also he proposed the second postulate, in which he proposed that though electron is moving inside the nucleus in a circular orbit, okay, but instead of infinite orbits, means infinity of orbits, which would be possible from a classical mechanics point of view. From classical mechanics point of view, you can have an infinite number of orbits, which is not possible from quantum mechanical. So it was the bridge between the quantum mechanics and the classical mechanics. So what he proposed, that it is possible for an electron to move in an orbit for which orbital angular momentum, that is L, orbital angular momentum is integral multiple of h cross. It is integral multiple of h cross, where h cross is nothing but the Planck's constant h divided by 2 pi, where Planck's constant is divided by 2 pi is the h cross. And he proposed that despite the fact that it is constantly accelerating, though electrons are moving inside a nucleus, around the nucleus, it is constantly accelerating because its direction is changing, so it is accelerating. Okay, so direction of the velocity is changing at each point. In such a orbit, though accelerated electrons are there, these electrons do not emit an electromagnetic radiations. These electrons do not emit electromagnetic radiations. Why do they do not emit into electromagnetic radiations? Because their orbital angular momentum is integral multiple of the h cross or h upon 2 pi. That was the thing which he proposed, and he proposed that is why the total energy of the electron in orbit remains constant. So from this second postulate, we can say that L is equal to nh cross, and we know that h cross is nothing but the h upon 2 pi. So we can rewrite this as L is equal to nh upon 2 pi, where n is the principal quantum number which has the value from 1, 2, 3 and so on. So that was the first time he proposed a concept of quantum numbers. Okay. Now we know that angular momentum L, it is nothing but the cross product of the linear momentum and the moment of arm, in which the separation between the electron and the nucleus is r. So in this case, angular momentum, it will be mvr. So from this one we get the second equation, that is mvr is equal to nh upon 2 pi. That was the second equation from the second postulate of Bohr model. Now in the third postulate, what he proposed, that electron emits an radiation when it jumps from one orbit to the another orbit. When electron jumps from one orbit to another orbit, it emits an electromagnetic radiation. And what is the frequency of that electromagnetic radiation? In order to explain that thing, he proposed this postulate. What this postulate tells us, that we will see. The postulate states that electromagnetic radiation is emitted. Electromagnetic radiation is emitted by an electron if initially moving in an orbit. If electron is moving initially in an orbit of total energy EI, and it suddenly changes its motion so that it moves in other orbit of energy EF. Okay, initially the electron, let us assume that initially electron was moving in an orbit whose energy is Ei, and suddenly it moves in a second orbit whose energy is Ef. If this happens, energy is emitted by the photon, or energy is radiated, or radiations are emitted by this electron, and the radiations emitted energy, it will be equal to the energy difference between the two states, that is Ei minus Ef. It will be equal to Ei minus Ef, and he proposed that h nu is equal to Ei minus Ef. That was the third postulate. From this one you can write down the frequency. It is nothing but the nu is equal to Ei minus Ef upon h. This is nothing but the Einstein's postulates which he proposed in the year 1905 when he explained the phenomenon of the photoelectric effect. Okay, now how this happens, we will see this with the help of an animation over here. Now see, this is an atom which you can see the circular orbits are there. In circular orbits, electrons are there which are revolving around the nucleus. This center region which is with this color, it is a nucleus, and when these electrons are revolving, suddenly if electron jumps from higher energy orbit to the lower energy orbit, it emits an photon. So this is the photon which is emitted in this direction. Okay, so its energy of the photon, it is h nu is equal to Ei minus Ef. Okay, and its frequency can be calculated from this one. Now what we will do, we will try to calculate based on the postulates of the Bohr's model. We will try to calculate what is the radius of the Bohr's orbit, what is the velocity of the electron in which in the orbit with which the electrons are revolving around the nucleus, and we will try to calculate the total energy of the electron. Okay, so let us start. From the first postulate, we know that centripetal force, which is mv square upon r, is equal to the electrostatic force in magnitude. So it will be 1 upon 4 pi epsilon 0 ze square upon r square. From second postulate, we know that mvr is equal to nh cross. If we square this one and we will divide it, the first equation, if I square this equation, that will be mvr bracket square is equal to nh cross bracket square. If I divide and if I square and divide to the first equation, so it is mv square upon r divided by mvr bracket square is equal to 1 upon 4 pi epsilon 0 ze square upon r square divided by nh upon 2 pi bracket square. Now see, what I'll do, I'll just try to rearrange this equation. This I can rewrite as mv square upon r as it is. This 1 upon mv square I can rewrite as an 1 upon m square v square r square. This first term as it is I am writing over here, and the last term I am just taking a reciprocal of this and square of this one. 2 square it will be 4, pi will be pi square, n square, h square. Now if I simplify this one, this 4 will cancel with this 4. This pi will cancel with this square. Okay, this m will cancel with this square. Okay, this v square will cancel with this v square. Okay, so on the left hand side I will get 1 upon r into 1 upon m is equal to ze square upon epsilon 0 into pi upon n square h square. If I further simplify this, if I transfer this r from this side to this side, okay, and so this n square h square which is divided on this side, it will get multiplied on this side. Similar with the case with the epsilon 0, so it will be epsilon 0 n square h square, and this ze square pi, it will, if I transfer on this side, it will get divided, so it is pi m ze square. So if I just change the right hand side and the left hand side, we can state that Rn, that is the radius of an orbit in an hydrogen atom or in an atom, it will be epsilon 0 n square h square upon pi m ze square. I'll recommend all you people, if you are preparing for the competitive exams, it will be better if you remember this formula. You can simply read this formula in this fashion: Rn is equal to epsilon n square h square upon pi m z e square. Epsilon n square h square upon pi m z e square. And if from this equation we can tell that epsilon 0 is constant, h square is constant, pi is constant, mass of electron m is constant, z is constant, e is constant. So from this one we can say that radius of an orbit is directly proportional to n square. Means as you go away from the nucleus, the radius of the orbit goes on increasing, which is quite obvious. Now we will try to calculate the velocity of the electron in Bohr's orbit. Now from second postulate we had this one, mvr is equal to nh upon 2 pi. So v is equal to, from this one if I write, it will be nh upon 2 pi into 1 upon m, or if I transfer this m and r from this side to this side, it will get divided. Now I know the value of r, which is epsilon n square h square upon pi m z e square. Okay, if I substitute this value in this equation, so, and if I further simplify, this pi will get cancelled with this pi, this pi will get cancelled with this pi. Okay, pi, it is getting cancelled with this pi. This nh, it will cancel with this square. Okay, and this m will get cancelled with this m. This m will get cancelled with this m. Now if I further simplify it, it will be 1/2 as it is, 1/2 as it is. It will be z e square upon epsilon nh. Okay, now this we can rewrite as v is equal to z e square upon 2 epsilon nh. Means from this one we can say that if z is constant, e is constant, 2 epsilon, and h is constant, so we can say that the velocity of the electron, it is inversely proportional to principal quantum number, which can take value from 1, 2, 3 and so on. Okay, so till now we have considered the two expression. One is for radius, in which we have found out that radius of an Bohr's orbit, it is directly proportional to square of the principal quantum number, and velocity of the electron in a Bohr's orbit, it is inversely proportional to the principal quantum number. Now we will look at the energy of the electron inside a Bohr's orbit. For this one we will be using what is the radius and velocity of the electron in Bohr's orbit. So we have calculated r is nothing but the epsilon n square h square upon pi m z e square, and velocity is equal to z e square upon 2 epsilon 0 nh. Now in order to calculate the total energy of the electron, now see, we know that the electrons are revolving around the nucleus. So obviously if some object is revolving around the thing, some object, then it is having certain velocity. So due to the energy possessed by virtue of its motion, that energy is called as a kinetic energy. So this electron which is there inside the atom, it has kinetic energy. So first of all we will try to calculate the kinetic energy. What is the kinetic energy's formula? Kinetic energy's formula, it is 1/2 mv square. Kinetic energy can be obtained from 1/2 mv square. So which is 1/2 m as it is, and we will substitute the value of v, which is z e square upon 2 epsilon 0 nh, and its square is there. So if we further simplify this one, we will end up with the expression z square m e raised to 4 upon 8 epsilon square n square h square. Okay. Now this is about the kinetic energy. Now we will try to calculate the potential energy. Why potential energy is acquired by this electron? Because nucleus is positively charged. Nucleus is positively charged. Electron is negatively charged. So Coulombic attractive force is there between the nucleus and the electron. Due to that one, this nucleus and electron system possesses a potential energy. That potential energy can be derived as a product of charge into electrical potential. From the elementary courses of lower classes, we have studied that a potential due to a charge E, it is given by 1 upon 4 pi epsilon 0 Ze upon R. Okay, and the charge on the electron, it is minus Ze. So if you further simplify this, it will become 1 upon 4 pi epsilon 0 into minus Ze square upon R. This is the potential energy. But we know that value of radius of the orbit, it is nothing but the epsilon n square h square upon pi m Ze square. So if I substitute this value in this equation, this is 1 upon R. So instead of epsilon n square h square upon pi m Ze square, it will be pi m Ze square, it will be at the numerator, and epsilon n square h square, it will be at the denominator. Okay, now further what we will do, we will cancel this pi, we will cancel this pi we will cancel with this pi, and this Z into Z, this Z into this Z, it will be Z square, and this minus sign we will take it out, so it will be minus Z square, m as it is E square into E square, this E square into E square, it will be this E square into E square, it will be e raised to 4, and 4 epsilon 0 n square h square will be as it is. Okay, so from this one we have calculated the potential energy. Now what is the total energy? Total energy is nothing but the addition of potential energy and the kinetic energy. So we have calculated the kinetic energy, which was Z square m e raised to 4 upon 8 epsilon square n square h square, and potential energy, it was minus Z square m e raised to 4 upon 4 epsilon square n square h square. Now if we take common from this one, from the first term and second term, you can see Z square m e raised to 4 Z square m e raised to 4, that is common, and at the denominator it is epsilon square n square h square, it is common in the both the term. So we will take that common, and from 8 and 4 you can take 4 common. So if you take Z square m e raised to 4 divided by 4 epsilon square n square h square common from this one, in the first bracket we will get 1 half, and in the second term we will get 1, because this term we have as it is taken outside. So that negative sign, it will appear over here. So it is 1 half minus 1. 1 half minus 1 will be minus half. So it will be 4 into 2. It will be 8. So total energy, it will be minus Z square m e raised to 4 divided by 8 epsilon square n square h square. Now from this expression you can check Z is constant for a given atom. Mass of the electron is constant, charge on the electron is constant, 8 is constant number, epsilon 0 permittivity of the vacuum, that is constant number, and H, which is Planck's constant, that is also constant. So from this one we can say that energy of an electron in Bohr's orbit, it is inversely proportional to square of the principal quantum number. It is inversely proportional to the square of the principal quantum number. And if you calculate this constant will come out to be minus 13.6 upon n square electron volt. So from this one we can calculate the energy of the electron in various orbit. So let us start to calculate the energy of the electron in first 5 orbits. So for first orbit n equal to 1, means for the first orbit principal quantum number n, it will have value 1. So it is E1 is equal to minus 13.6 divided by 1 square. It will be minus 13.6 divided by 1 square. 1 square, it will be 1. So this is equal to minus 13.6 electron volt. So the ground state energy of an electron in an hydrogen atom, it is coming out to be minus 13.6 electron volt. Now if the same electron, it will be in the second orbit, what will happen to its energy? So in energy of the electron in the second orbit, it will be minus 13.6 divided by 2 square. 2 square it will be 4. So if you divide 13.6 divided by 4, it will come out to be 3.39. So it is minus 3.39 electron volt. What does this negative sign indicates? That it suggests that electron is bound to the nucleus. That is why that negative sign is there. Similarly, if you calculate the energy of an electron in the third orbit, for third orbit n is equal to 3, so it is minus 13.6 divided by 3 square, so it will be minus 13.6 divided by 9, so which is coming out to be 1.51 electron volt. And the fourth orbit n is equal to 4, so it is minus 13.6 divided by 4 square, it will be 16. If you do this calculation, it will come out to be minus 0.85 electron volt. For the fifth orbit, if you do the same calculation, the answer will come out to be minus 0.54 electron volt. In this way, if you go till infinity, when n will tend to infinity, energy of the electron in that orbit, it will come to 0. That is nothing but the ionized state of the hydrogen atom. Okay. So now based on this energy levels, we will prepare an energy level diagram for an hydrogen atom. Now in this one, you can consider on the left hand side, I had shown these energies. E1 is equal to minus 13.6, E2 is equal to minus 3.39 electron volt, E3 is equal to minus 1.51 electron volt, E4 is equal to minus 0.85, E5 is equal to 0.54 electron volt. And if you check on the right hand side, it will be n is equal to 1, n is equal to 2, n is equal to 3, n is equal to 4, n is equal to 5, n is equal to 6, and so on till it go up to infinity. If electron will go to the infinity, that will be the ionized atom. In that case, the energy of the electron, it will be 0. So that will be a free electron. Okay. Now, according to the third postulates, when electron jumps from higher energy orbit to the lower energy orbit, what happens? Now see, if the electron is jumping from the higher energy orbit to the first energy level, that is n is equal to 1, then the electrons, when electron will jump from higher energy orbit to the principal quantum number n is equal to 1, the photon will be emitted in this direction, in this way, and the series which is observed in that case, that is named after the scientist Lyman. So it is Lyman series which emits an radiation in ultraviolet region. Okay. Similarly, if an electron jumps from higher energy orbit to the second principal quantum number, second orbit, that is from n equal to 3 to n equal to 2, or n equal to 4 to n equal to 2, or n equal to 4 to n equal to 2, or n equal to 5 to n equal to 3. If such a kind of transitions are there, such a kind of series is called as the Balmer series, whose radiations emitted are in visible region. Similarly, if the electron can jump from higher energy orbit from, for example, n equal to 4, 5, 6 onwards, electron jumps from that energy level to n equal to 3, then such a series is called as the Paschen series, and Paschen series has a electromagnetic radiations in infrared region. Okay. Similarly, if the electron is jumping from higher energy orbit to the fourth orbit, then that series is called as the bracket series. And if the electron is moving from higher energy orbit like 6, 7 and onwards into the orbit number n equal to 5, then it is called as a Pfund series. So basically these are the 5 series are there in an hydrogen atom. This is a schematic energy level diagram for hydrogen atom. And we are saying that atom is ionized, in such a case the electron, instead of coming down to the energy lower orbit, it moves away from the orbits, or it moves away from the atom, and we call such a atom as an ionized atom. For an ionized atom has to move outside the nuclear potential, that plus 13.6 electron volt of energy it will be required to remove an electron from the first orbit. If the same electron we have to remove from the second orbit, then plus 3.39 electron volt energy is required for that atom, okay, or that electron to remove from an atom. So that energy is called as the binding energy of an electron, okay. Thank you students. Thank you for the attending the today's session. I hope you have understood the discussion which we have done today. I request all of you people to please like and comment the video, and if you are not subscribed to our channel, I request all of you to please subscribe the channel. And I also would like to request all you students and colleagues to please share this video with the various students preparing for the various examinations. Okay, that's it for the today's session. We'll stop here for today's lecture. Thank you.